Dana Perino, along with Kimberly Guilfoyle, Ebony Williams, Eric Bolling, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. If you didn't think it was possible, another twist in Hillary Clinton's email scandal. Colin Powell breaking his silence on the matter, saying she's trying to make him the fall guy. Now, as you may recall, Clinton has thrown around Powell's name quite a bit in defense of her use of a private email server.
Secretary Powell has admitted he did exactly the same thing. He had such a distinguished record. You know, I have served my country as well. We both did the same thing.
Now we know Colin Powell had a private email account.
Just recently, Colin Powell's emails were retroactively classified from more than 10 years ago.
Right.
As he said, that was an absurdity. I could not agree more.
Okay, so there's that. And then she even reportedly told the FBI that he was the one who suggested that she use a private account in the first place. But Powell is now saying that is not true. At an event this weekend, Powell was quoted saying, "Clinton's people have been trying to pin it on me. The truth is she was using the private email server for a year before I sent her a memo telling her what I did." This, of course, raises new questions as to whether Clinton lied to the FBI about who advised her to set up the server in the first place. Greg, I have a feeling that Powell was like, stop trying to, no more Mr. Nice Guy.
Yes.
This has been going on for a year, though, and he just sort of said this sort of as an aside at an event over the weekend.
It makes sense that she's putting this all on a guy named Colin because she's so full of crap.
Oh, my God.
But you know what he reminds me of? You know when you're in line at the checkout and there's a fight at the checkout line and the person is like looks at you for backup and you're like, I'm out of this. Stay out of it. Do not pin it on me. And the fact is, you never pin a good thing on someone. So even Colin knows that this is a bad thing, and that it's like I'm not getting the blame for this. This is on you, lady. And stop. And why do you have to keep bringing me up? It's not fair. But the big story about this is it was broken. This story was broken by People magazine. This wasn't the New York Times or the Washington Post. That means that the new Woodward and Bernstein were writing about Kardashian's behind all this time. And they
just happened to get a scoop.
They got a scoop.
In the Hamptons.
Well, you know, the cool kids have a name for this. They say, keep my name out of your mouth, right? And I feel like this is Colin Powell essentially telling Hillary Clinton, keep my name out of your mouth. Also, Dana, a huge distinction here, and Hillary Clinton actually said it. Colin Powell had a private email account, right? She had private email servers operating from her home. That is very, very different. And furthermore, the whole he did it too argument, for me, that's like the opposite of leadership. So I think, you know, to the extent that there was some similarities at all, that's just a lame cop-out by Hillary.
She was trying, Eric, to basically use him as a shield.
Yeah. She's trying to do everything. Advice to Mrs. Clinton, stop with the emails. Forget it. Just start eating it. Don't start blaming other people. You hear what we found out today? The FBI found 15,000 additional, not the 30,000 that they scrubbed already, 15,000 additional emails that she never admitted to having. And now, as we're working through these, I have some of the ideas here. I know we're going to get to it in a bit, but wow, this is
baby pictures.
This is unbelievable. So yeah, no baby pictures, and so far no yoga plans or wedding plans.
Kimberly, when it comes to what she told the FBI and what now we are hearing what Colin Powell said, can they reopen this? Or Comey look back and say, maybe I was wrong?
Whoever came up with this, pinned the tail on Colin Powell. It was ill-advising Hillary Clinton, because now they might have just set themselves up for the greatest, slam dunk perjury case of all time. Because for him to come out, and he's very loath to criticize, the Clintons, he always is more reserved about things. He's saying, okay, it's enough already for me. Actually. And it is distinguishable what Secretary Powell did at the time versus Secretary Clinton, because he used a commercial email address to discuss personal matters with family and friends and did not put State Department business on a personal or commercial email address. He complied in terms of the information that was relayed to protect national security. And what you've seen here is Hillary Clinton making a mockery of national security. And, it's all about yoga mats and downward dog. But you know what? People that know the truth and the difference about what matters and take our national security seriously don't find her funny.
Plus, there is a huge difference, Greg, between email use in 2002 and then when she became Secretary of State in 2009. I mean, we didn't even have BlackBerries in the administration until well after 9/11. So I think that she's also trying to hide behind a former Secretary of State who's usually very diplomatic.
Yeah, no, it's a sign of it's basically saying, well, when you remember your mom used to say, just because Billy says jump off a bridge doesn't mean you have to. This is what she's doing. She's saying, like, well, he did it first. He did it first. It is the most primitive.
But it's also dishonest.
Yes.
He used the State Department email for all conducted State Department business.
And he didn't delete them on the way out the door.
This is so night and day different. And you know what? She's ruining his reputation, or trying to, doing her level best to, being reckless, being a loose relationship with the truth, and they should take the matter back up.
Right, and he's 79 years old and saying enough of that. There's also more to come on the Hillary Clinton email story, because one of the things that people were looking at was the Clinton Global Initiative. There was news on that over the weekend, and Donald Trump called on them to stop it.
Number one, they should shut it down. Number two, they should give the money back to a lot of countries that we shouldn't be taking and they shouldn't be taking money from. Countries that influenced her totally. And also countries that discriminate against women and gays and everybody else. I mean, that money should be it should be given back. They should not take that money.
Also today, Eric, Bill Clinton saying that he will step down if she becomes president, but at this point, I guess the foundation did what it was supposed to do,
and not only that, here's what they're signaling. They're saying, hurry up and get your donation in before November for influence. If you want influence, get it in now and watch the donations come pouring in before this potentially event where he can no longer be a
part of it.
All right, so quid pro quo, very quickly, some of the 15,000 emails. We found out the Crown Prince of Bahrain wanted a meeting with the Secretary of State. He was told, you'll have to wait. He dropped $26 million into the Clinton Foundation, gets the meeting with the Secretary of State. There was a British footballer who got in trouble for doing something in England, wanted to meet with Secretary of State. Also, a donation help make that happen, or at least open the door to where eventually they got to work some things out with the State Department. We already knew about the $145 million that went into the Clinton Foundation. That was just after Secretary of State Hillary Clinton okayed a deal to sell 20 to 25% of U.S. uranium production to the Russians. Think about some of these. These are textbook business school quid pro quos. I mean, you can't get even worse. Until James Rosen today asked the question at the State Department. Did you hear that question? There was an email, one of these 15,000 emails, an email going from Clinton Foundation operative, I can't remember who it was, to Mills. Cheryl Mills. And the email says, hey, can you ask our boss if she can do this? Meaning Clinton Foundation, Hillary Clinton boss, State Department, Hillary Clinton boss. She can't have both of those titles. She can't. Well, and that exposes them to quid pro quo.
Her campaign manager, Robbie Mook, tried to answer some of these questions yesterday.
We have Republicans in Congress and right-wing groups doing everything they can to try to make something out of nothing here. The fact is that at every juncture, the foundation has gone above and beyond what is usually in place in terms of ethics and rules for a foundation like this. When President Bush, the second President Bush, came into office, you never heard people asking questions about his family's foundation, which was a very similar situation, and members of his family remained on the board of their foundation while he was president. What we're just asking for is for people to take a fair look at this situation.
Well, and taking a fair look, Greg, I mean, Laura Bush, the former First Lady, was not then serving as the Secretary of State.
How do we know that? I don't think there's any records of that.
There are no records of that.
They were actually thrown out. Look, my question is, where does this go from here? Because I don't think the media is doing quite the job they're supposed to in this arena of looking at the Clinton Foundation or the Clinton Global Initiative, which is CGI, which is interesting because it's special effects to alter reality. The only way this is going to come apart is at the debate, because Trump will have to force her to answer the questions that the media doesn't. Because so far in this game of whack-a-mole, the mole hasn't shown up. You can't hit the mole because it's never there. But on the debate, the mole is going to have to come up, and then there'll be Trump with the little mallet.
Choice.
The mole is trapped on the stage.
Former mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani, and a supporter of Trump's, Kimberly, basically said the Clinton Global Initiative, he used the word bribery, that's what it's been. Do you think that will factor into any FBI consideration, or is that just water under the bridge?
Well, he's saying that not only as former mayor, but as a former prosecutor who's investigated and prosecuted racketeering and RICO violations. And he's saying what we saw here, this level of corruption is so overt that it rises to the same level and would warrant a very thorough and fair investigation and potentially indictment. So he's been
under RICO.
That's what I just said.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying. So he thinks that there is definitely a case to be made for it. But you don't see them climbing over themselves to try and even properly investigate it. And if it were, anybody else, but the Clintons, BTC, they'd be.
There is further
already.
information, Ebony, that basically the Justice Department, having seen all this information, heard from the FBI repeatedly, has said, look, there's nothing to see here at the Clinton Global Initiative. We've checked into it. Everything's fine. And they just let it go.
Yeah, and so to break it down too, Dana, like the Clinton administration, the Clinton Foundation, rather, they've done great work, and I think that's important to note. But KG, you know about this legal doctrine that we all learn in law school, fruit of the poisonous tree. Yeah. And that's really big here because for people that don't really understand the big deal.
What is the fruit of the poisonous tree?
So that's
don't eat it.
Don't eat it. When the content goes through corruption, even if it's doing good work or goodwill or is valuable, it's corrupt, it's tainted, and therefore it can't be used in the same way.
So even if you built a bunch of clean water wells in Africa,
and
it doesn't matter.
Research and drugs and meds and all that good stuff that the Clinton Foundation has done, the method in which you got those resources is so foul and so corrupt and so just horrible that we have to take that into consideration. I think that's a good...
Courts would exclude it.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah, it's like the drug kingpin opening up a playground for the kids over there. It's a similar example. But also, Charity Navigator, that's a website that issues, it scores different charities. In 2015, they backed out. They said, we can't even attempt to rate Clinton Foundation anymore because there's no transparency. They don't even understand the tentacles.
That story.
Yeah, well,
but we never knew it was going to get to be this big.
Yeah, and I have a hunch as you continue with these emails, you'll find out there'll be more and more of the lack of transparency that gives Charity Navigator headaches.
All right, we're going to move on, but before we go, I just want to tell you this. So the Judicial Watch has been filing all of these lawsuits that are bringing all this information to light. The judge said that the Clintons have until October 14th they must submit its questions to Clinton by October 14th. So Judicial Watch sends questions to Clinton by October 14th. And the judge says she has, guess what?
2 weeks?
30 days.
Yeah, 30 days.
30 days in which to answer, which would put it beyond the general election.
Unbelievable.
There we go. All right, Donald Trump's been making some changes to his campaign as the general election nears. And is he walking back his hard line on illegal immigration? You're going to hear from the Republican nominee himself when the 5 returns.
He's here?
Favorites of all time. All right, last week, Donald Trump admitted he had regrets about things he said this election cycle. Is he now planning to soften his stance on a signature issue of his campaign? Had a meeting with Hispanic leaders over the weekend. The Republican nominee reportedly indicated he would find a way to legalize undocumented immigrants. But this morning on Fox News, Trump insisted his immigration policy is not changing.
We have to be very firm. We have to be very, very strong when people come in illegally. We have a lot of people that want to come in through the legal process. It's not fair for them. And we're working with a lot of people in the Hispanic community to try and come up with an answer.
So you're not flip-flopping?
No, I'm not flip-flopping. We want to come up with a really fair but firm answer. It has to be very firm.
His new campaign manager, however, left the door open.
What he supports is to make sure that we enforce the law, that we are respectful of those Americans who are looking for well-paying jobs, and that we are fair and humane for those who live among us in this country. As the weeks unfold, he will lay out the specifics of that plan that he would implement as President of the United States.
That plan include a deportation force, the kind that you just heard in that soundbite and that he talked about during the Republican primaries.
Be determined.
TBD. So, Dana, how about the messaging there? You have the candidate, the nominee, saying that, in fact, he's going to not change the position, et cetera, but then we've got information saying that he will, and then Anne Marie Conroy, who's taken over as campaign manager, a little bit of different message. How do you reconcile it?
Well, we thought we were going to get more information because what Dana Bash was asking Kellyanne Conway was, so is he going to lay this out on Thursday at a speech in Colorado where he's going to be speaking? And she says to be determined. So I thought, okay, well, maybe we'll get some clarity. But then we find out today that he's no longer going to be giving a speech on immigration. He's just going to do a fundraising event in Colorado, which is an important state for him to try to win. So I think that I don't know. I mean, when I listen to him on Fox and Friends, I feel like he still left the door open for changes. But then he doesn't want people that supported him for his earlier stance about deporting possibly up to 11 to 12 million illegal immigrants who have been in the country for a period of time, that came here illegally, that have been here for a while, so-called in the shadows. So I truly don't know what his position is.
All right, Eric, how do you reconcile it? And then also he's saying, I want to be fair to the people who stand in line, that wait, etc., to follow the law and comply with the legal requirements for citizenship in this country.
Well, look, I don't know how he does it. Right now, I think the two things he has to do, he has to build, if he becomes president, he has to build a wall. He can't back off on that, and he has to get Mexico to pay for it. I think that those are two things he can't. There's no wiggle room in those. He said it time and time again. As far as the deportation, he said it with Morning Joe and Mika a few months ago, several months ago. I don't know if he can. I don't know if he can turn on it. Maybe he can. I'm not sure. Maybe he can say, I've been advised by Kellyanne Conway and some of my other advisors, and this is the way we need to soften it. But he may risk his base if he does that, because his base loves the idea of deporting all 12 million people who are here illegally. So I'm not sure how you do that politically. I have no idea how you do that. I will tell you, though, it shouldn't overshadow what happened last week. Last week, he had an African-American outreach that was probably one of the best pivots I've ever seen in politics, where he was having a hard time with African-Americans, no doubt, and he goes to Michigan, and he makes this speech saying, what the hell, why not give me a try? What could possibly,
what do you have to lose?
What the heck do you have to lose? He should do that in every city. He should do that to every, like Detroit.
But to black people, not just to white people.
Philadelphia. Right. Well, I think that's who he's talking to. Go to Cleveland. Go to the cities where African Americans have had 50 years of rule in these cities, and their poverty is higher, their unemployment is higher, and things aren't better. He has actually a chance to make some changes and pivot towards a more diverse.
Greg, you've talked about this before when you've pointed out that there are Democrats in charge of so many of these failing cities with liberal policies, which have not produced economic growth. When you look at Detroit and other places that are struggling, like Chicago, etc., where there's a tremendous amount of violence and loss
Cleveland,
of African-American lives.
You're pivoting away from the story.
No, I want to.
That's funny, Greg.
The story.
Answer all of it.
No, I'm not answering any of it. I'm going to stick to what Kellyanne Conway said, which he gave the Trump campaign a new slogan. To be determined. That is exactly what this campaign is, to be determined. And that is not a criticism, by the way. Because he glides from event to event with impulsive opinions, every promise that he makes is actually a negotiation position. He says this thing and then he goes, maybe I'll change my mind. If you actually believed that he was going to deport 11 million people, that's on you. You probably believe that was Ryan Lochte's original hair. The fact is there was no possible way he was ever going to do it. He was feeding his hungry base, which has always been his problem. He should have stopped feeding them and started an outreach to the Hispanics. By the way, I'm glad that he met with a group of Hispanics. I hear it was one of the first times he didn't ask them to mow their lawns, so that was good.
I want to say this. Consistency, I think, is very important here.
Yeah.
Right? So I actually applaud, to your point, Greg, I applaud the Trump campaign for taking a step back and actually trying to figure out something that's, in their words, fair but firm. What I think is not okay is when we're inconsistent with how we evaluate that. Trump doesn't get to say, now I want to take something that considers a possible way for some of these immigrants to get in America, and that be considered firm and fair. But if another candidate says it, on either side of the aisle, by the way, that's amnesty, or that's amnesty light. I think we need to be very, very consistent. And stop, demonizing when people want to take a step back and look at it from a reasonable standpoint, the right way.
I think it's good. I mean, right now he has more positions than the Kama Sutra on immigration, and it's okay.
Oh my gosh.
It is okay. That's his thing. It's about negotiation, but he's got to be realistic about it.
Name one position.
Stop it.
Just threw that out there. He doesn't know. All right, ahead, President Obama will visit flood-ravaged Baton Rouge tomorrow, but what took him so long? He is under fire for hitting golf balls while Louisiana got hit by the worst natural disaster since Superstorm Sandy. Next.
After 16 days on vacation and 10 rounds of golf, President Obama finally going to visit Louisiana tomorrow, a state absolutely devastated once again by flooding. At least 13 people have been killed and thousands displaced after severe storms hit more than a week ago. The president could have put down his golf clubs and headed south, or at least appeared before cameras, but he did neither. The White House defended the president earlier.
What the president's been focused on is the response on the ground. The president was on the phone with the governor of Louisiana 8 days ago to talk to him directly about how his state was being affected by the flooding. The effectiveness of the response thus far speaks for itself. And I think, frankly, it's the most effective way to answer any of the politically motivated criticism that the president has faced.
Louisiana's Governor John Bel Edwards says he didn't tell the president not to come, but recommended he visit once recovery efforts had begun. The governor offered praise for Donald Trump for changing his plans to tour the state on Friday.
Was it a good thing that he came down?
Well, I think, yeah, for the reasons that I stated earlier, because it helped to shine a spotlight on Louisiana and on the dire situation that we have here, that it was helpful.
All right, so Ebony, also the lieutenant governor was on TV today saying he was happy Donald Trump came. He would have welcomed President Obama had he come prior to this, just to get the eyeballs on the area. And he said, in many cases, in many reasons, that this is worse than Katrina because of the vastness of the flooding. Yeah, I was in Louisiana during Katrina, Eric, and certainly this area that got hit is not used to and accustomed to this type of flooding, so that made it very different. A lot of people were questioning, I saw over the weekend, Trump's motivations, right? Is this Trump doing this for a photo op? It was reported that the Louisiana governor was questioning that, but we see now that he said, you know, thank you for coming. I actually don't care, Eric, about the purity of Donald Trump's intentions on this. Here's why. He'll be accountable for that to someone far greater than me and you. What's important is that eyeballs were on Louisiana, because this story has been overshadowed by the Olympics and everything else that's going on. And my first cousin, who's the mother of 3 in St. Tammany Parish, she has a newborn. All of the contents of her home are on her front yard right now. God. Okay, and that's thousands of people in that area. So whether Trump went for whatever reasons, it really doesn't matter to me. It's important that he went, and it's important that President Obama should have went. He should have went. I'm glad he's going tomorrow, but he should have gone. Here's the reason why. It's good that he's been on the phone and operating behind the scenes and getting them the resources they need from the federal government, and I do believe that. But when you are the leader of our country, it's important. People follow your lead. And so when you show concern and you're visibly around this issue, it really ups the ante as to the level of concern and awareness and participation around these people affected. And I think that's very important. Then your thoughts, the lieutenant governor also said something that people may not realize. Trump also left a sizable donation. Well, I mean, if he left a sizable donation, again, to your point, in terms, if that was because he was doing it out of his heart and we don't know about it, which means that would be a good thing because he wasn't trying to use it for political purposes, and I won't do that here either. I'm kind of over I think there should be a statute of limitations on scoring political points about Hurricane Katrina. I know that the White House was asked earlier about it today, takes another swipe at Bush. I'm tired of taking swipes at Obama, but I mean, there was a tragedy. It was catastrophic. You know, far be it from me to point out the Democratic governor and the Democratic mayor, who then got done for corruption, were the ones who were incompetent from the beginning. But FEMA did not do a good job. And President Bush said he shouldn't have flown over. Let that picture be taken. But overall, FEMA performed better now than they did 8 years ago, or 10 years ago, now 11 years, since Hurricane Katrina. And that should be the good thing about government. I'm not worried about scoring political points on this one. Greg, should we not be leading this segment with President Obama still on the golf course?
Yeah, I guess I don't think so, because I often ask myself, would we do this story if it didn't have a political bent? For example, I wonder how many people actually still think about that child in Syria that we talked about last week. A large portion probably didn't.
I looked at the picture an hour ago.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. It is sad. But my point is this, that unless a story bears political fruit, sometimes people in the media don't cover it. There's some interesting facts about this story. A major hurricane hasn't hit the U.S. Gulf or East Coast in like a decade, according to the Washington Post. But when they do hit, they tend to be worse because there are more people concentrated in areas. And ironically, the good point that they haven't happened makes people less ready when they do. That's right. In this area. Yeah, and so that's the. If you talk about the facts, it's actually more interesting and more helpful, maybe. Yes, but let me play a little devil's advocate on that point of theory there. The governor and lieutenant governor were both happy Trump came.
Yeah, well, the right thing to do. The right thing to do is to go there and to see what's going on. And I think anybody who would go and see the devastation and see the families displaced and children, everyone's lives affected, and what the churches are trying to do to step in as well to help people, you would probably be moved if you had money to make a donation, because your heart would see through your eyes and say, what can I do to try and help alleviate this suffering? There is just really no substitute for going there in person and seeing and feeling and breathing and smelling the devastation of the flooding. It's horrible, and the people that are just, their whole lives are like erased, like someone hit the delete button. I have an idea. So it's very, very difficult. The president should have gone. I think the whole world knows it. You know you're in trouble as a president when even the cartoons of liberal newspapers and whatnot are putting stuff out there with him golfing off, rooftops.
Let me throw an idea at you. Madam Secretary wants to be president, has a lot of money at your disposal, the Clinton Foundation. New Orleans. Louisiana, the people of Louisiana, Baton Rouge, could use a little help. Maybe they open up the coffers of the Clinton Foundation for some people down south. Quick thought?
That's your very last thought. To Dana's point, to the extent that I believe George W. Bush should have come to Louisiana, this is an opportunity for President Obama to learn from that. You know, that's okay. It's okay to say.
The only thing about President Bush going is, should he have gone on that day? He did go. I went with him
absolutely.
14 times. And the city was rebuilt.
Of course.
If you wanted to talk, we could get political and talk about the fact that the NAACP, for example, has just stripped out support of all charter schools. That's part of its platform now. Rebuilding New Orleans was also not just about the levees, but about the entire city and part of the Catholic school rehabilitation and the charter school thing. I don't
part
think
of all
it
of
needs
that.
to be
I'm not saying that it needs to be political, but I'm saying, I think you just said, you know, looking back on it, the flyover was not good.
On that particular day, no.
So I'm saying President Obama should look at that part of history and learn something from that and say, just like that wasn't the best choice, in my opinion.
Well, he did when he was running for office the first and the second
when it's time to put, you know, that in a way that matters to people, it seemed like a missed opportunity.
All right, well, they're wrapping us. I'll give you one more. How about it, Madam Secretary? How about sending some money from the Clinton Foundation to the good people of Louisiana? Still to come, some bad news for American swimmer Ryan Lochte after his Rio robbery story unraveled. Lots of ours. Details ahead.
Last week, after Donald Trump made a speech, CNN ran this headline, quote, "Trump wants GOP to court black voters, then slams voting rights for felons." That's weird. The key word there is then, for it links both issues that if you want black votes, why would you stop felons from voting? CNN's implication is that blacks and felons are one and the same. It's amazing. The headline's a concise example of the subtle racism of the liberal media, where any reference to crime is a black thing, not just a human thing. Now imagine using this bigoted headline in other ways. Clinton wants Jewish vote, then slams greedy bankers. Gary Johnson courts the Irish, but condemns heavy drinking. Trump appeals to Hispanics, then calls illegals rapists. Well, actually, that happened with Trump at his campaign launch when he conflated Mexico sending criminals here with all illegals. So how's the CNN headline any different than that? Well, with a Republican, everything's always racist. But when it's mainstream liberalism, it's thoughtful. Which explains why so many cities under thoughtful liberal rule are near ruin. If you view crime as a racial thing and not a human thing, any act to solve it is seen as racial, which hurts the law-abiding folks who don't see race in crime. They just see their lives made worse by those who find politics in their pain. Imagine, Eric, if FNC ran a headline like that.
That would be terrible.
It would be terrible.
Can I just take exception to one comment in your monologue there when Trump said at his campaign launch about all illegals. I'm not sure he said all. I think
no,
he
you know what I'm saying is he
rape,
conflated
murders and rapists.
They
are part of the illegal population coming over. Otherwise, that would be like 9.6 million rapists and murderers.
Yeah, no, but that's the way he said it. He conflated. I'm not saying he meant it. I'm saying he conflated it.
Yeah. So was this a tweet? Or was
that was a headline.
CNN was a headline piece. Yeah,
and it was still up there as I was writing it.
Yeah, they should probably retract that. I think they did, right?
I don't know if they did. No, when I wrote it, it was still up.
Yeah.
Maybe
T-minus 10 seconds.
Maybe on Sunday when they do, what is it, Reliable Sources? Brian Stelter can do an hour on this headline.
No,
he won't mention that headline.
What producing? You've already done the rundown for him.
Exactly.
That's perfect.
And it's only Monday.
That is true. So, what else is
Well, I don't like...
Got anything?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't like the headline, but I'll say this, as a criminal defense lawyer, there is an intersection, though, Greg, of race and crime and the law and how that all intersects. The truth is we know that certain laws do adversely affect and disproportionately affect the black community, but the majority of disenfranchised felon voters in this country are white. So it was actually also just wrong, accurately speaking. You know, it's problematic. It would be absolutely problematic if it was the other way around. And it's true. We need to look and we need to be very careful, I think, is the lesson for everybody here. In the language, because what we say matters and how we say it matters and how it's perceived matters too. I think that the issue Trump has, and going back to your point earlier, Eric, Trump gave a great speech last week about his intention to operate and move the black community forward. And I think a lot of people were happy to hear that. I think Donald Trump still has an intention problem when it comes to the black community. And he's not alone in that. I think Hillary Clinton does too. And that's why her trustworthy numbers are where they are. And that's why Bernie Sanders had a lot of support from people that really were not interested in Hillary Clinton. But I think if Trump is at all serious about having black voters or Hispanic voters turn out and support him this November, which I think he could get, absolutely, he's got to kind of address that and kind of connect some of these dots for them.
Dana? Is it
Well,
too late?
I don't.
was
It's
a
not too
thoughtful
late. He's got
question.
10 weeks left. There's like 79 days left to the election, but he does have a 91% on average, 91% disapproval rating with the African American community.
That's
So
up from 99.
you could improve.
It is.
Yeah, it is, right.
Yeah, it
Well,
is.
that was one poll in one state,
I know.
Pennsylvania.
Gotta give him a little.
And it was several weeks ago. So,
down.
but could he chip away at that? Could he improve? Yes, but I think also the audience matters, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that is a great speech to give after you have a one-on-one meeting with a group of people that looks a little different from where you were standing in front of a 95% white crowd, giving the speech saying that African American. I know that the speech was good, but it was not taken well by the audience for which it was intended, and
Because they don't
that is a
trust Trump's
that is trouble.
intentions. Yeah, that's the thing.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah.
You got to start somewhere. You
That
do.
is true.
And you have to do outreach. I think it is so important, even if you get 3 votes from that community, try and do it. Try and earn votes. Try and show people that they matter, because everybody cares, no matter what your religion or what your ethnicity, about good schools and about jobs and providing for their family and living in safe communities where they can go out at night and walk the dog, or pretend they had a dog to walk, whatever.
I pretend I have a
like
dog.
Craig.
Tell the police.
Your small ferret.
Yes.
That's fine.
Tell me to go home.
But that's what matters, right?
Those
You
are
can't, if he
American
ignored it, then he'd be criticized. I want to see people try and earn the vote. Make
All
it
right,
count.
we got to move on next. Ryan Lochte says he's sorry for telling tales to Brazil. Now he's being robbed of his sponsorships back home. Is that fair?
The 2016 Summer Olympic Games came to a close last night in Rio as one of Team USA's athletes here tries to close the book on a fabricated robbery controversy.
If I didn't over-exaggerate the story, I told the entire story,
Yeah, he's hot.
none of this would have happened.
In a televised interview, Ryan Lochte apologized directly to the people of Brazil. The fallout for the swimmer continues here at home. He lost 2 huge sponsors today, Speedo and Ralph Lauren. TMZ caught up with Lochte earlier.
Are you going to consider rehab or AA?
I don't know. I can't answer that question right now.
Speedo, has dropped you, and they released a statement about it. What are you going to be wearing in the pool going forward?
I heard about that, and it stinks. Speedo was great to me. They were like a second family throughout my swimming career, and I guess it's a new chapter now.
Okay, so during that, Dana was like, for what, right? Why is he going to go to AA? Apparently, he admitted that he was still intoxicated when he gave the interview the following morning, so I think a lot of people are reading a lot into that. But what I'm more concerned with is he blamed this whole debacle on, quote, immature behavior. Now, we know Ryan Lochte is 32 years old. I am as well. And I consider
You're
us
much more
adults.
mature.
Never do that.
But I consider us adults, so I just feel like that's like, come on, don't give like
But
us
you can
a bad
be
rap.
32 and be immature.
And be immature.
You can. You would never be.
Not Ebony.
But, he could. Look, I think when you do something wrong, in most situations, there are consequences, especially if you are at your employer or with your sponsors. And so he's paid a price. I think he's pretty sincere in his apologies. So I think that maybe we can, after tomorrow, let this one go.
Eric, is this us blowing, us being like, the U.S. and the media, is this blowing this whole thing out of, pardon this, in the water?
Nope.
Okay.
You listen, when you sign up for these endorsements, this is a free market at work. When you sign up for these endorsements, either it's written or unwritten, there's a responsibility on your part not to do things like getting really wasted, ripping posters down when you're drunk with your friends. You don't do that, or you risk that, or you risk other things like going to jail.
And lying about it.
Yeah. So the lying about it thing, the USA Today may have a little bit more backing on what he actually said. Clearly, he put his hair back to the original color. He's eating it, taking full responsibility for all 4 of the swimmers. Someone is doing damage control on it right now. But the free market will take some of those endorsements away. And guess what? Who's waiting right in the wings? Nike or Under Armour waiting to get that bathing suit contract in his hands to sign for the 20 Olympics.
Yeah. So to that point, let's talk about the money, KG. Money, money, money.
Money.
Okay, so he's lost big dollars today, but moving forward, is he going to be in a position, you think, to get that back, to rebrand himself and move forward to 2020? He intends to. He said that he intends to keep swimming, and even if he's suspended by, they put together an investigative committee, the U.S. committee, on this. Is this going to hurt him, or can he come back?
He's totally going to come back from this.
Okay.
So this is the story now. He's obviously very sorry. And, young guys like that, they've been he's been training forever to do the whole Olympics thing. There's a lot of self and personal sacrifice that goes into it. I get the whole, blow off steam. This is why you have to travel with security. Don't ditch your security when you're at that level, because they're the ones that are going to be like, okay, that's it. And throttle back and get you back in, back to the hotel. Enough is enough. But we don't need any more embarrass America stuff. That being the case, he'll get endorsements and stuff in the future. He's obviously trying to deal with it, crisis control, a little bit of reputation management. And the reason why they asked him about rehab is everybody always says, okay, when they have a personal crisis, blame it on drugs, blame it on alcohol, go to rehab to try and clean it up and attribute that to it. So I don't know if he's going to do that. That's why he goes, I can't really answer that question right now, right?
Good point. Greg, let me ask you, because I'm actually kind of skeptical on this. Everyone's like, he really is sorry. I don't know that I believe he's really sorry. Here's why. The language. I over-exaggerated. I mean, you lied. And maybe for me, it's better if you just say I lied and I'm sorry.
Well, the problem is over-exaggeration. It's not a word. How do you over-exaggerate? That's like, I'm only going to dig half a hole. It makes no sense at all. And just another point, better that Speedo drop you than you drop Speedo.
In certain cases.
Not always.
But the interesting thing is, why does Speedo need endorsements? There's there's no Pepsi in the Speedo world. It's either Speedo or no Speedo. You're either an Olympic swimmer wearing a Speedo, or you're a fat German tourist in South Beach wearing a Speedo. That's the only time you ever see a Speedo.
Now you've done
it. On that note,
you got Germany against
one more thing is up next.
Time now for one more thing. Greg.
All right, time for something new. Here it is. Greg's Musical News with Greg Gutfeld. I hate saxophones, by the way. Anyway, this is interesting. Coco is a famous primate. It's known for knowing hundreds of words and sign language and all sorts of stuff. It actually joined Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers to play a song, and I don't know if we have some tape here, or you'll just stare at me for a while.
Sounds like... That's it.
All right. As most people, musicians know, this is a vast improvement over the Red Hot Chili Peppers. The worst band on the planet.
They said to me, the producer said, you should do this story. I go, no, because Gutfeld's going to say the ape is better than Flea.
No, the ape is better than Anthony Kiedis. By the way, the ape is 45, which is half the age of Anthony Kiedis. Fan. Red Hot Chili Peppers, Poor Man's Faith No More. Don't ever forget it.
This is that's a great new addition to the
Red Hot Chili Peppers. Big fan.
We're going to have a debate on this one day. I just want to say something, one more thing about the Olympics, and that is about the refugee team. This is a team that was the first time they ever competed. It was created from 4 countries: Ethiopia, Syria, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and South Sudan. They came together as a team, competed. They did not win any medals, but they did get a nice, wonderful bit of applause at the closing ceremony, and just want to wish them very well as they continue on. Kimberly.
Thank you so much. I love this one more thing. Thank you, Raj, for sending this in to me. This is so important. Dana, Ebony, you're going to love it. So a female U.S. sailor was awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal, which is very significant, earlier this month for her brave efforts during the January incident, if you recall, that resulted in Iran detaining 10 Americans. So the sailor, who was asked not to be identified, was the only female among the 2 crews, Navy riverine boats that entered the Iranian waters. Anyway, she managed to activate the emergency beacon while she was bound and held at gunpoint, then signaled to the U.S. that, in fact, that they were in trouble. Iranians, later discovered it and turned it off. But anyway, she's petty officer 2nd class and was the number 2 gunner on the 2nd boat during the January 2nd incident. And the military said she displayed extraordinary courage at risk to her own safety. Well done.
Good for her. All right, Eric.
So while I was being lame all day about my one more thing, producer's like, you have to come up with something, just do this one. So here it is. 13 out of 15 dogs would prefer good boy vocal praise over a treat. And that's not the headline of the story. The headline of the story is that this study was conducted by Emory University, one of the best higher learning institutions in the country, and they took 5 years to come up.
I don't think this is true. This is not true.
With this results.
Actually, my dog likes to lick my feet instead of treats or praise.
Okay, so I'm going to do do a quick plug here. I'm actually guest hosting for Alan Combs tonight on Fox News Radio at 6 o'clock. Check that out. And this is the cutest story. So a 9-year-old said instead of birthday presents, this is a 9-year-old from Acadiana, Louisiana, Mom, save my birthday money. Give me money to donate to the flood victims. Instead, he had his mother buy pizza, and they ended up getting a match from a local pizzeria. They gave out almost 400 pizzas to the victims.
That is awesome.
Absolutely.
God bless. All right, tomorrow on The 5, Libertarian Party nominee Gary Johnson joins us right here in our studio, so make sure to tune in for that. That's it for us. Special Report is next.